you're looking at vibe code apps, programs, websites, and all that sort of software, and you don't want to use these all-in-one tools like Replit or Lovable, I vibe coded the entire our localhost.com site and data management access and everything. And I had someone reach out and ask me if I could sort of explain how I did that. So let me walk you through how I put it all together. First off, I've been using Cursor. I used to just use plain ChatGPT and copy and paste into VS Code. I tried out the Google anti-gravity, and while I found the Google Gemini 3 to be a fantastic model for coding, the anti-gravity had limits and issues and whatever, so I moved over to Cursor. I'm on the $60 a month plan, but the amount I use it, if I use pure tokens, I have a third of the cost, a fourth of the cost, just using their $60 plan and sort of swapping between models. So everything revolves around Cursor. The first thing is I had to get the data. I wanted to use Unraid as the kind of the first source of truth. And using Cursor, I built a tool that helped me go to the page and extract every single card that they have on their site with the name and the link and some basic details. And then I did the same with TrueNAS and Proxmox and Docker Hub and Umbrella. And I saved all of those. I did it to a CSV at the time, which was not the best idea, but that's just what I did. And I had to then figure out how to get Zima OS. Zima OS doesn't have a public-facing app store. Well, they do, but it's very limited. A lot of the additional value you get from Zima is from community app stores, like Big Bear, something or other, I'm not sure. And for this, I needed to get a script that would go to the GitHub repositories, download that, go into each of the multiple folders, and get the information out from the multiple folders. And then lastly, wherever there was a logo, I had to get download the logo to a local folder. And all of this I did creating an external ID. So then I could have an ID that was tracked, and I could rename logos and images and whatever data so it all matched this one ID. Now, GitHub doesn't have a way of just going and searching. So I used a tool called Serpa, and I would do a Google search using this tool. And I'm basically going in URL, github.com, and then the app name plus repo, and getting the Google search results. I would grab them back. I would pass them using OpenRouter to a large language model, a cheap one. Actually, no, I was using an expensive one because I was a dummy. I have just moved over to using the ChatGPT OSS 120B, which is their open source model, hosted on OpenRouter. It costs cents. I spent a ton of money stupidly before the whole database got hacked, but just changing models made it incredibly cheap. So at this point, I have all of this data in CSVs and I have logos, but that's all I had. So the next step is I needed to get the images hosted. I don't want to have images on my site. Slows things down, can't do transformations. And as far as load speed, if you're not only loading an image from your website database, and if we've got 100 things loading, you can only load a certain amount of things into a web browser at any one speed. So if you can kind of separate where stuff gets loaded from, it speeds things up. So renamed everything, and using the Cloudinary API, again, Cursor, this is what I want to do. I uploaded everything with that XID so I can match it back, and it gives me a single URL. First problem though, I didn't resize everything, so some of the images went up onto Cloudinary that were like 2 meg. I then kind of went back, resized all of the images, and then uploaded them. Should have done that in the first place, but I did this later, but I would have convert all of those CSVs I have into a Postgres table and all of the Cloudinary images into another table of the URLs. So now I just have raw data. The next is I had to start putting it into some sort of system that I could manage. Using Cursor, again, in a new project, I built, and a lot of this I'm saying, in a new project I did this. No, I didn't do this from the start. I just hashed my way through it. Terrible. Please plan when you do stuff, because unless you're able to adapt and change really quickly, things can get messy. In a new project, I created 3 different sections in the project. The front end, which is JavaScript and HTML. Directus, which is a content management system, self-hostable content management system, and Postgres, a new Postgres, and Directus interacts with the Postgres database. Directus is what gives the APIs that allows the front end, the JS, the JavaScript, to not only get the data, but render the information into the page. So booting up Cursor, starting to build everything. I use Docker Desktop. So when I code, I always try and make it a Docker application. Docker Desktop can put all of these different tools, the front end, the directives and everything into one container, and it gives you a URL and it runs a little server. So when you want to look at your site and see what it does and upload data and interact with it, Docker Container gives you all of this sort of thing from your desktop. It is absolutely fantastic. And while I'm doing this, I had to kind of match the data. So I have a name and I've got, sometimes it's on TrueNAS site, sometimes it's in Git, the GitLab, the GitHub URL. So through a process of trying to match and using Python scripts, again, Cursor to write the Python script to go and do a lookup and create a new table and go and get this and create a new table and go and get that sort of thing. And what I'm doing now and have been doing is when it's not quite right or something didn't get uploaded or correct, using other scripts to, first off, go and look at the tables I've got. Maybe the link is somewhere else. If not, go and do a search, see if the link is correct, and have a validation, a second step in the LLM of, is this actually the correct URL? If yes, go and insert it into the database. If no, just mark it as done and move on. So over a few days, getting the data, cleaning the data up, using Cursor to build the front end and the CMS and the back end, and putting that all into GitHub. So all of the code lives in GitHub. Then I spun up a server on Hetzner. It is a relatively cheap, but I'm already having some performance issues, so I am definitely going to have to upgrade the server. And I've installed Coolify, which is a little operating system that allows you to connect your GitHub to the Coolify. So when you do a push, all of the code just goes from your site, from your computer to GitHub, and then it sends it to Coolify, and that will do a build. And because it's Docker, it's a little container, it says, okay, I need to get the database from here, and I need to get the environmentals, the usernames and passwords from there, and I need to install this, and I need to run this code and build the site. And that's how it got deployed, our localhost.com. So if you're vibe coding, there is a lot, and I call it maybe not vibe coding, more AI assisted coding, because I don't code. I can read it, but I can't code. I can't write it, but I know what it's doing and what it should do. And this, I think, is kind of what, if I was a full stack developer, the process you would do, except I'm just using AI to do the code. I did forget to mention, because I am doing analytics, I have used a tool called Metabase. Metabase, again, open source. It allows you to connect an SQL, or actually a lot of different types of databases, to a visual tool, and you can start to write queries, SQL. I used ChatGPT to help, but Metabase has a really good way of connect this, filter that, put these two together, and then show me this. And I'm sending data from the front end. So when someone clicks something, it'll send a data. When someone comes and visits, it creates an anonymous ID and a session ID. So then I know, a person is doing something. And in that session, that you might do a search, and it will send this ID in this session searched into an analytics table in the Postgres. And Metabase allows me to create a view, an analytics view of how many people have visited, what are they doing, what are they interested in, where are they having issues. So all of this stuff, apart from GitHub, and technically you could self-host a GitHub alternative. So you're not, connected to, Microsoft, I think, own GitHub. You're not connected to that big tech. Coolify is open source. But at this point, the only thing kind of big tech really is Cursor. But you could use VS Code and one of the plugins and GitHub, and everything else is kind of, open sourced. And Hetzner, because it's got to live on a remote server, and I'm not, I don't have the money to buy a physical box and go and put it in a data center and pay the costs. Maybe one day. So there you go. That is how over the last week or so I have put our local host together. If you've got any questions, let me know. Please go and visit. And tomorrow I'm going to be pushing some more updates. Right now I'm just doing a lot of data cleaning. I will be pushing some more updates tomorrow. Maybe tonight. Soon.